Alright, we are back with a new series of podcast. I guess you could call it that. I don't really know what it would actually be called. But we are back, and I am joined today by another special guest, a returning special guest. Christian is here.
Hello there.
Remember from Game of Thrones?
Yes.
All those months ago. Talking all about the fun things of Game of Thrones and all the controversy around it. But today, we are here to actually talk about a new series, The Mandalorian, that came out, I believe, like 2 weeks ago now, or at least a week ago now. So there's been there's 3 episodes now. And essentially, this podcast will be a conjoined podcast of the 3 first episodes of The Mandalorian, or the first 3 chapters, whatever you would call it, for the series. And we're basically going to follow the format of the old Game of Thrones series, which was essentially we'd go through each episode, talk about certain things about it, what we enjoyed, what we didn't like, plot related things, and all the sorts and lore and stuff like that. And I think there's going to be a lot in this, especially Easter eggs anyway, in terms of Star Wars, because of just how big Star Wars is. And there are, well, I believe, things that I've sort of picked out and seen other people pick out. There's a lot of little Easter eggs in each of the episodes and stuff like that, which is pretty good. But yeah, basically, this podcast, this series of podcasts will be different, will be separate from the normal Hive chat, which should be coming back in, well, hopefully in a couple of days after this, if that's done correctly. And so this series of podcast, the Mandalorian podcast thing, should go over the next couple of weeks, doing all the episodes. It'll either be one episode per podcast, or be like this one, just depending on how long each episode it is and how long we talk about it today on each of them. And besides that, the other thing is there may be another series that may be coming out soon, and if it all goes well, they may be coming back with the same format for the new Witcher series on Netflix. However, for now, I'm not going to guarantee it or anything, but that may be in the pipeline. But other than that, I don't believe there's anything else. And I believe we'll get straight into it with the first episode of The Mandalorian. I've completely forgot what the first episode's called. I'll search it up. But what's your general thoughts? Well, let's say, hang on, before we do that, what's your general thoughts on The Mandalorian so far, Christian?
The Mandalorian so far. Okay.
Yeah, for the first 3 episodes, I'd say, yeah.
Well, one word, enjoyable.
All right, yeah.
To elaborate, it's I'm very really it's conflicting, because there's a lot to dive into specifically, but I would say there's definitely things that can be, that could have been better, but as a series in general, it is something that obviously that I'm going to continue watching.
Yeah.
If you get that.
So yeah, I guess you're curious of it all. You're curious to find everything out and still enjoy it. Though there are obviously points of that you don't particularly agree with.
There's definite points, but I think there's still that sense of okay, this is something Star Wars, and since I really love Star Wars, I'm going to watch it.
Yes. No,
but also because it actually is good. Don't get me wrong. Again, but we'll continue to elaborate. But yeah, I think just as a starting point, it's definitely conflicting, but good.
No, I definitely think I would be on the same boat as you there. It's conflicting in certain aspects in terms of each of the episodes and the way they all sort of work, and we'll go into that. But no, yeah, I'd definitely say enjoyable, sort of interesting and everything. And the one thing I'll probably bring up every now and then is I really like it because it's it's the idea of it. It's essentially, we'll probably go on this as well, but all Star Wars usually is just Jedi versus Sith. In this, it's, well, again, a bit conflicting and stuff like that, but it's more or less sort of not just plain good versus evil sort of thing, which is good because it means it sort of creates a world that doesn't always have a black and white, like the movies most of the time, and it sort of it goes beyond it, and the whole way it does that obviously is through perspective through the bounty hunter, who we still don't really know what his name really is. They just nickname him the Mando, but whatever. And we'll talk about him and everything. But yeah, I would definitely say it's enjoyable. It has very interesting aspects. Lore-wise, it expands on a lot of things and brings in a lot of old things, which is what I like. There's all the lore behind it and everything. And it's, like, visually it's amazing. I think if I were to see it, I think, I would see that in a fucking movie, Just the quality of it all, I think, it's that good. And hopefully that holds up for the rest of the episodes, and hopefully, if it all goes well in the following seasons. But who knows how that will all go. But first up, we'll go into the first episode, which actually doesn't have a name. It's just called Chapter 1. Again, I probably should have said this, but yeah, the spoilers for everything. This is a spoiler review. But each of these sort of episodes obviously are all set after the fall of the Empire. I think like 5 years or something like that after the Battle of Yavin, so with the end of the Death Star and Emperor Palpatine and all that. And it's sort of that power struggle sort of aspect now in the world, and now how more or less the Outer Rim basically stays exactly the same because no one gives a shit about it because it's the Outer Rim, and no one cares about these backwater planets. But yeah, it follows this Mandalorian bounty hunter as he hunts down, does bounties and stuff like that. I guess the first thing to talk about in this is that when the first time watching it, and I think for the first episode anyway, it was like, the first part of it was like a traditional sort of bounty hunter opening. So just this sort of lone wolf, doesn't speak character just walks into the bar, gets a drink or whatever, and the other guy's there's whatever sort of other pirate or other bounty hunter, and he's like, hey, you dropped my drink or whatever, and it goes into the classic bar fight where he just kicks those guys' asses, and like it was cool and everything. However, it was like very just like, okay, I get the picture here. And then obviously from there we have some interesting. I like the I don't know what race he is, but it's like a fishman or whatever. I thought that was hilarious with like the interactions between the two. What do you think, Christian, about? I don't know what he is, what race he is, but he's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, I did like the bounties character, like, again, and I'm not sure what race he is either, but yeah, he definitely had a certain quirkiness to him. But with that entire opening sequence, right? Like, to elaborate more, like, there's this very stigma with bounty hunters, like,
yeah,
deriving from that, all the cowboy, introductions, and
yeah,
it was very, I think it was very just derivative of like, oh yeah, so this is how we're going to introduce this character. It's like it's supposed to be like this cool moment, right? Which it was, but I couldn't help myself. But this is where the conflict is. Like, this is where my conflicting issues literally start right there being seen. So, I don't want to say. See, it's weird, right? I don't want to say it, but I feel like it should be said. Like, it's a bit. I feel like it's the wrong word.
What word?
Cringe.
No, I would say okay.
I don't want to say that. I don't want to say it.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean, definitely, yeah. Like, I feel like it's an excuse to just use that wild western sort of opening. I feel like that it's just sort of an excuse to use that.
Like, it's, in a way, it's enjoyable. It's because it's fun, right? Yeah. But then again, how many times have we
That's the thing, that? Yeah, like, see, that's the thing.
I want to see something, like,
something
new,
different.
Which it actually, like, I'll say it now, like, definitely has been getting better.
Oh, yeah.
Throughout the episodes, right?
I will agree with that, yeah, as well, yeah.
I think an element to it that has gotten better is dialogue, because in this first episode,
yeah,
the dialogue and especially in that first sequence, yeah, it was very I would say one word is lacking,
Yeah.
you know?
Because, yeah, it's that thing where it's the bounty hunter, Wild Western lone wolf boy who just sort of like says a few words and just does his job and whatever. It's the classic trope, obviously. And as I was saying, I think, I feel like it's just an excuse just to use like this Wild Western opening for Star Wars. And sort of, it's cool and all. However, it's just like, I feel like I've seen this before. Maybe it could have been something different. To be honest, I thought, like, thinking about it now, I liked when they were like getting in the speeder and then they were hopping onto the ship. I can't remember what the freaking ship's called now. What's it called? Whatever. But he goes back on the ship and this like big like walrus like whale monster comes out. You know, I think that would have been a cooler opening. Like him like versing this thing or something.
Honestly,
like that. That would
yes.
be cool. He could have been
like
like
no context whatsoever. Him just getting on the ship and then suddenly he's just being like attacked. I feel like opening with something that's more powerful than him, like being in a more vulnerable state. You're like, oh, my curiosity has been piqued. You know,
it's probably not the right thing what I'm saying here, really. But in terms of like when it comes to writing anyway, or any like lore and stuff like that, I feel like there's too much exposition in that intro. Because it's like,
yes,
it's given us too much of who he is. Like, okay, he's a bounty hunter, he's a lone wolf guy, he's a Mandalorian, he's this like, apparently this badass bounty hunter. If they could have started with that, like, I don't know, something differently, like fighting that big like walrus monster thing, it would have taken away that whole element of like the traditional Wild Western gunslinger, right? Bounty hunter. It could have taken that all away and changed his character's perspective. He could have even still talked less, but it would have given a different edge to like looking at the story anyway, and looking at least they did something different instead of just basically saying, okay, we're gonna just take this old Western thing where the guy just walks into the bar and put it in space. And it was cool, but I definitely agree with you. It could have been much better. I think the way I think about it is that it just gave us too much exposition for what it was, and it shouldn't have really done that because it sort of, I feel like it takes away a bit from even what Star Wars is anyway, in a sense, because I don't want, stuff like that. But, overall though, it was still pretty good, the first opening. It wasn't something I hate. It's just something I wasn't particularly agreeing with, as with you now. But yeah, like, besides that, anyway, we obviously go on ahead. Unless there's anything you want to say about it.
I think make a good point about it. Like, I think as a general point for the series, it's very like Star Wars-esque. It has that aesthetic. I think that's the best part of it. Like the visual and special effects for The Mandalorian is definitely its high point.
Yeah.
Because like, especially with that first episode, you could have like 3 seconds put like to a viewer of any part. Like you pick any 3 seconds and they'll say, okay, yeah, this is Star Wars.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's the aesthetic of Star Wars is there. And like, I think I said this, like, I believe, I'm sure, I think I'm correct in saying this, that there's obviously practical effects used. Because that's what like Star Wars is so known for, or the puppets, or the like character designs, the aliens, just the building designs and the ships as well, and the classic transitions, like I don't know what they call them, but like the wipe and the you see all the classic transitions when they move from planet to planet or from places. Like that's like a classic Star Wars thing. It's just this sort of fading transition, which I thought was just a little nice touch to it and all. But I think out of everything of this so far, the production value for everything in terms of visual wise and everything, I think is like absolutely just outstanding in what it was. Because like this is a pilot episode, for God's sake. Like that's amazing, really, when you think about it. Like how much they can do for a pilot episode. I just hope they can continue doing this if it all goes well in the end, because like this cost a lot of money to do.
Oh yeah.
Like holy shit, but there's Disney's doing it, so they're rich as fuck. So I think they can do it. But it definitely has that amazing aesthetic and everything. But pushing forward, I guess, the other things sort of to talk about is I guess, yeah, like the general bounty hunter thing when, I don't know what planet he goes to, I don't think it's actually said, but it looks like some volcanic planet or some shit like that, and he goes there, obviously gets another bounty, and we see him meet with some whatchamacallem, Empire people, which is it's interesting to see that because obviously as the story is set like a few years after the Empire has fallen, so these are like the remnants of the Empire. We don't really know too much, even up to the third episode. We still don't know too much about them, like who they're affiliated with, because like who knows, because like in terms of legends wise anyway, and I don't really know too much about the canon wise, but a lot of like the Empire like split into various, I guess sort of like Splinter Cell sort of groups. They all separated, so I don't know if this guy's like this little pocket of the Empire in this outer rim planet with some bigger organization, or they're just some smaller group. But I guess we'll uncover that in the future. But there was a lot of sort of interesting Easter eggs in that here and there. But the obviously we see the stormtroopers in there. And I don't know, I feel like watching these stormtroopers, they look a bit more menacing in this.
Oh, yeah.
And I think, like, they looked like they were being portrayed as, like, not, like, shitty shooters, if you know what I mean. Like, how, like, you know, always a stormtrooper misses, you know, their shot all the time. But in this, I don't know, I felt like an air of, like, they felt like they were, like, you know, pretty good. Or, like, they were all beaten up. You could see by their armor, it was all, like, not rusted, I don't think, but it just like worn and stuff like that. I don't know, I just felt a vibe from it, like these guys like weren't actually shit, and they actually were pretty good. Because obviously we have that standstill.
They've seen some shit.
Because we've obviously had that, we had that like in the middle of it, we had that standstill with the Mandalorian in the middle where he's got the gun up and everything when the Doctor comes in, and then there's like the 4 stormtroopers there. I don't know, I just felt like they're like, for a moment there I was like, fuck, these stormtroopers can just kill this Mandalorian who's meant to be this badass bounty hunter. But obviously, spoilers, episode 3 proves that stormtroopers are still shit, and apparently can't hear or see for shit. But we'll talk about that later, because there's some things I want to talk about as well, as cool as that was. But moving ahead, actually talking about that Doctor, what's the Doctor's name? His name is Dr. Pershing or some shit like that. So I think it's true that his his like signet or his symbol on the right, on one of his shoulder pads, is like a the cloning facility symbol. Like, what are they called? Camino's like cloning staff or whatever. And obviously we don't really know what that means.
From the original series.
Yeah, or from the prequels.
The prequels, yeah.
And which is interesting because obviously, you know, it's like this is interesting. Why would there be this cloning guy there? Because from what I know is that basically they sort of like not banned all cloning, but they basically got rid of it all. Because, well, in terms of like clone stormtroopers, they just didn't want to use clone troopers for whatever fucking reason. Because I think, you know, whatever, that's another thing. But we also, you know, we get told that there's this big bounty that the Mandalorian has to do, and obviously he picks it up. He gets some Beskar steel, which we get to see later when he goes to the Mandalorian like tribe that's just living underneath this like town. There's all these I think all these, like, we see them later. I think all these fucking Mandalorians look badass as hell. They all got like super cool ass armor. It's all like patchworked as well. It's not all like you know, all shiny and everything. It's all got like, you know, you can tell it's been used. They're all different. Like there's no one the same. They've all got different color schemes, different armor pieces, which I think is like, I fucking love that, of like this sort of Mandalorian tribe warrior culture, which I think is so cool. And we also get reference, and I may as well say it now, but so they talk about how basically the Beskar steel, which is the armor that the Mandalorians use, which is like the best armor ever. There's another armor which everyone else uses, but it's not as good. But in terms of lore anyway, I don't think this was actually told even in other things that I know of, but in this they've said that there's a thing called the Purge, the Great Purge or something like that. So what I was reading up is that apparently the Empire killed a lot of the Mandalorians and stuff like that in Mandalore, which is Mandalorian's home planet. And what happened was all the Mandalorians there, they were basically scattered. They went to this tribe, which we don't know if there's only one tribe, which is the one here, or there's like a number of them, but for now it seems like there's only one at the moment, that sort of managed to escape this purge, which basically killed nearly all the Mandalorians for whatever reason. Because to me, like, going against that, I'm not going against, but I sort of thought the Mandalorians would be sort of like on the side of the Empire, because, you know, they both sort of are very similar ideals in a lot of things, but that's another thing. But there's obviously the purge, as I was saying, but what happened was all the Beskar steel was taken, and then obviously now he's the Mandalorian's getting some back because he's helping the remnants of the Empire. And I thought, and I'll probably talk about this later, but I thought that the Purge was actually referencing the Jedi Purge in Revenge of the Sith. I thought it was talking about that one. I was like, for a bit there, I thought it was talking about the Jedi Purge when they all died, but it actually wasn't. I'm talking about a completely different purge. There's apparently a lot of purges, Star Wars, because I think there's another one.
So I didn't actually know that. So
yeah.
That makes more sense, I guess.
Yeah. Because, like, when I was thinking about sort of, like, what was the deal with this Beskar steel and all this shit, and in this Purge thing, but yeah, I believe this Purge thing for the Mandalorians is new, from what I gather. Unless it could also be in Star Wars Rebels, but I haven't watched Star Wars Rebels. It probably could have been in there, but not too sure. Moving on, we also find out that the Mandalorian, this guy, the Mando, we see some flashbacks of him, which is confirmed later, that was during the Clone Wars, because there was a Separatist alliance there, all the battle droids and stuff like that. But he is... I don't know if he's actually a proper Mandalorian. I don't think he actually is. I think he's just some guy, just from some backwater planet, who's just managed to get into the Mandalorian thing, because... but I'm not too sure, but because he doesn't have his signet, which is basically a like call sign, I guess, for the Mandalorians, and he still hasn't got it yet. And then we go on and follow the Mandalorian to this bounty, which he goes to some other random planet, which I have no idea what the name is, some desert planet, some Tatooine or some shit like that. He goes there and he sees these, he lands and he sees, what are they called? There's like giant, like, two-legged, I don't know what...
I could describe it as, it's just like, they look like fish toads.
Yeah, actually they do. They look like sort of tadpole thing. You know, like
really
they're in between like tadpoles.
Tadpole fish toads.
Yeah,
like,
I don't know what they call it, but like they're in between tadpoles and frogs when they still have their tail and their like legs or whatever. Actually no, they look exactly like that. These like giant bulbous fish things, who almost kill him, who's meant to be this like badass, who basically almost gets his entire arm like chewed off. But then
these things were like very
savage.
Like the best way to describe it is very like, because you know Star Wars is very into its weird looking
creatures and aliens. Yeah,
creatures and aliens. And this is very like, this is definitely like,
well, yeah, it's so weird. It's so like,
yeah,
I don't know what to like think about. Like, yeah, I've never really seen anything like that, I guess, but it just looks weird. It's got like massive mouth and massive eyes. But then, thankfully, this random guy comes out of nowhere and saves the Mandalorian. And I fucking, out of everyone so far, I love this guy. He's probably my favorite character so far. He's just...
I have spoken.
Oh, fuck. That's a classic line now. But he's like, I guess, like, the best way to describe him, he's like a pig-like alien sort of thing. He's sort of like a pig human. But
yeah, I mean,
well, like,
little.
He's like, I don't know, it's actually weird because
I don't know how to describe him.
The race that he comes from, I don't know what they're called, Ugnaught or something like that. They look more like pigs. This one looked a little bit different, so I don't know what the deal is there. But we see this guy who decides like he'll just help the Mandalorian, and we find out later that he's helping the Mandalorian because too many bounty hunters have come here to deal with this task, and they've all been failing. So he's like, I've had enough. I'm just going to help this guy so we can get it done. And he believes this Mandalorian will do good because he's heard the rumors of Mandalorians who are meant to be basically the best warriors in the galaxy, besides like the most elite stormtroopers or some shit like that. And then we have a little bit of a cool sequence where he learns to ride one of these big tadpole creatures. After it's again, it's following with that Western style sort of thing where it's like this sort of, he's got to tame his horse. To get other things, so it's following that vibe again. Very, very sort of typical with that. But then we also, there's a little remark there, and also which I thought was sort of interesting as well, because that guy, I don't know I don't think he said his name yet, but I'm just gonna call him Pig. The pig. No, yeah, the pig man. The pig man. He sort of talks about like how the Mandalorians used to ride, not creatures like that, not like the tadpoles, but they used to ride these big, like, monstrous creatures. I don't know what they call it, and he's sort of talking about that. I thought that was a little nice nod to the old Mandalorian thing, which I'll talk about later. That will make more sense later. But then we follow him with this pig man as they go to the destination. We get to the destination. It turns out there's like pirates here or some shit. We're not too sure. Like, we still don't know who like those people were defending it. To me, they looked just like hired mercenaries or something, because they all were the same. Or actually, I don't know, maybe, yeah, like a hired mercenary group, because they're all like the same race almost. I think most of them were anyway, at this compound, and they all had the same armor and weapons. There was a lot of them as well. And then we have this pretty cool fight scene where we see, oh god, what the hell's his name? What's the assassin droid actor's name?
Oh, Taika Waititi.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he voices the robot assassin.
As we see the assassin.
Which I thought was like amazing. Like, I recognize his voice like straight away.
Yeah, you can hear the accent and everything. It just like picks up. Yeah. But then this badass assassin just comes in, ruins everything, ruins the Mandalorian's plans, and then they have this cool little scene where they're holding off against all the other people, and I thought this was a really cool gunfight. And I thought, again, this is actually a very traditional Western style, shootout.
It was, but like, I would say, like, overall, I'm not very fond of the whole Western influence.
Yeah, no, yeah.
But for this case, for this scene, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I really did as well.
Especially with the robots' constant humor of like self-destructing.
Yeah, I will initiate self-destruct. No, wait. Fucking don't kill us all. And then, Lord and behold, they managed to win by, this didn't make any sense to me. Why on earth would they bring this like big Gatling gun closer to them? Wouldn't they just have it really far back, so then they just shoot it?
I'm not too sure. Like, I'm gonna have to rewatch it, but like, from memory, I feel like there was a continuity error, because I swear the
it's like teleported.
Was like, yeah, I swear it was
because it was at
here, and then it was like
right next
so
to the
close to
yeah.
him.
I think that was the thing I was picking up, because I thought like, why would it be so close? I sort of thought, why there's no point in it being close, but I guess it it ended up being a cool scene, obviously, because then the Mandalorian just hops onto this fucking Gatling gun and kills everyone. And then they just managed to do this. And to like, what I actually think is really interesting in this, because it also goes to show that this main character, this Mandalorian, who still technically has plot armor, at least has an aspect that he's not some like super badass killer. Because in this, we actually see him actually not being like too good because he's like, obviously he's like, he can't take on all these guys at once, right?
Yeah. He's officially not a one-man army,
which is good, because I don't want another one-man killer, because I think that was a good thing, because it adds, I guess, that human
a flawed
value.
Character is 100% better.
Yeah, it adds a flaw to him,
and, no questions on it. Seriously. And I think also this scene is definitely the first scene where we actually, like, I think character, like, not development, but like, the viewer realizes that, oh, this isn't just some emotionless like character. He actually has somewhat of like a personality, because I think especially in somewhat of the first sequence, just tracking back to that, he didn't really have
Say
one.
anything, yeah.
So like in this scene, I was like, oh, okay, thank God, like
He
he
actually
actually
has some like even humor
there is
or
actually
personality.
Some underlying morals underneath this character.
Yeah.
So and then obviously diving into the second ep, heck.
Like I don't know. I definitely think there's that underlying personality thing, and I think this just has to do because it is only like the third episode so far. There's only been a couple of episodes, so they can't really give him too much of a personality. But I just really hope he's just not the same till the end of the series. I really hope he even change it, because I understand the whole point of what Mandalorians are meant to be. They always have their mask on for whatever goddamn reason. They're meant to be these like enigmas essentially, who have basically no idea who they are really, and they barely talk and they just do whatever. I think it's good that they're changing it, at least for this. However, I still definitely think there's still he's still mostly a mute guy who we basically just have to sort of, obviously we this I guess goes in with what we're talking about in a second, but how he instead of like saying things, it's instead the pauses that give the personality, I guess, is the main thing as well, because he like pauses and thinks about things instead of, and like there's that when every time the camera like looks at him at particular times, which I'll talk about later, is that it's sort of that way of like, because we can't see his facial expressions, it's instead the camera looking at him that's giving us that same sort of like contemplating sort of expression, because we can't see him actually contemplating under his helmet. Instead the camera is like giving us that moment, and the slowdown of not time, but like I guess not slowdown, but the music dying down and stuff like that, to give us that moment of like thought processing, I guess, for him. But then moving on ahead, we obviously get to the end where we find out what this bounty hunting is all about. And it turns out this bounty was all for a little green frogman, who is apparently 50 years old and looks like a 2-year-old. But yeah, it's there's no other official name for it, so we're just gonna call it. Well, actually, no, there is an official name for it. It's called Baby Yoda, and that's what we're gonna call it because it is Baby Yoda. However, it's not. Way to say it. However, it's not Baby Yoda, but it is Baby Yoda.
But it could potentially be Baby Yoda.
It could possibly be, but it could also not be.
Diving into theories here, but
diving into theories, we'll get into that. But yeah, we find out it's Baby Yoda, which is a shock because no one saw that coming. And I thought was like it sparks everything, right? And I think actually we'll hold the theories for now until the final episode, so we can talk about them. But there's a lot of things obviously forming from that. It's like, what the hell is this? A clone? Is it an offspring? Is it just another part of the race of the Yoda people? There's still no fucking there's gotta be some race name. I was actually having a look, and I think this is false, but I was looking on some. It was on like Wikipedia or some shit like that, but it was referencing that Yoda's race were called elves.
Elves?
Yeah,
really?
I think that's wrong, because I don't think I've ever seen that anywhere else.
Yeah, I don't think it would really fit, because I think George Lucas like made sure.
Well,
there was,
he
like,
made it was a
basically
mystery.
No information on it.
Well, yeah, he definitely made
like
it. But
all our knowledge is that there's Yoda,
green frog people.
Like, yeah, and that's it.
No? But I don't know, I just saw that and I thought, I thought that might have been referencing something else, but I don't know. But I guess they're sort of like elves. They have very long ears. They're wise. Though elves are quite
they live
tall.
very long.
They are quite tall.
I mean, yes.
But they do live very long as well. But who knows, maybe we won't, maybe we will find out. But maybe, I think actually it's true. It's better to keep it an enigma as a mystery, because I think that's sort of the power of it as well. But that's the end of that episode anyway. Overall, that episode was great. Opening, however, there were problems, I think, definitely with the style of the way of the entrance was, and just the general, I guess, the influences it's using, which I actually don't mind Western, however, it's not my forte. I still, I still like it nonetheless. Is there anything else you want to say for episode 1?
Like, again, just really, I think, really good start. But yeah, obviously, still there's just conflicting issues. And then I definitely, Baby Yoda, I think, definitely makes it up the charts there. Like, if something's like going bad, put your Baby Yoda in there. Like, oh my gosh, yes, you got me. You got my attention.
Yeah, you got me now.
Probably like
So
the cutest little thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's so freaking good. It's so cute. Right. But yeah, we'll move on to episode 2. So yeah, episode 2, which is called The Child, was shorter. It only went for 30 minutes. And I think you said this a while ago to me and you, Christian, that I feel like, yeah, they could have put episode 1 and episode 2 together. And I think that would have been
definitely right. I think, sorry to cut you off there, but yeah, definitely 1 and 2 could have just been one episode, because I think it not in the sense of like time, but really in a sense of story wise.
Yeah, I feel like it just broke the flow of it a bit.
Yeah, because I feel like episode 2 is more of a
like a side story. I thought it was like sort of a game wise anyway. It's like you're going on the side story now. Even though it is still technically the main story, it just felt like that because it felt. I don't know. To be honest, I don't know if it just didn't feel like complete. I don't know. I forgot that reason. It just didn't feel like a complete episode.
I think like a problem is like obviously this is the first Star Wars TV show, right? And we're so used to seeing, live action, right? And we're so used to seeing like live action as in the movies, right?
Yes, yeah.
We have this whole thing. And I think maybe like that's, I guess, maybe like an underlying problem that people aren't actually realizing.
Yeah, actually,
the flow could be cut off, I've only really just kind of realized that, but I think, especially with, I think it's, I would say so far, like again, it's still fresh. It's still, we don't know how I don't even know how many more episodes there's going to be, but, I think episode 3, like that actually was probably like a good start to finish, like a full story thing. But again, I think, hopefully, that continues, like that sort of flow. But again, just like the general point would be story-wise and time-wise, 1 and 2 could have been just
1, yeah.
1.
No, yeah, I definitely agree.
But yeah,
as well,
anyway.
But yeah, in terms of this story anyway, it follows on, and it turns out that this time he brings the child back to his ship. Along the way, there's some bounty hunters who are trying to kill the child, but he actually saves the child, which I did say, but he, instead of, the assassin trade was going to kill Baby Yoda, but the Mandalorian had that character development where he's like, hang on, I'm not killing a child, because it's obviously like, why would you do that? You can't kill this little cute thing, I was having a look, I got it now. So,
and I think this is like also where like I was very relieved actually with episode 2, because like it actually starts off like how that opening sequence of episode 1 was a bit conflicting. I think episode 2 starts off amazing. It's literally, it goes from 0 to 100 just real quick.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not like, it's not dragging on with sort of obviously a story that doesn't even matter to the main story. But no, I definitely agree with that. It just went straight.
Yeah, and I think again what you were saying with writing, I think him starting off and then like suddenly, boom,
Yeah, it's not just like
attention grab,
a whole paragraph of just background.
And I think the action sequence in a sense was also really great.
It was great, yeah. Because I think if I'm not mistaken, those bounty hunters he versus are Trandoshans, which are like lizard people. And I believe they're the exact same, and actually no, we find this out later, but those are the same ones on the cantina that the bounty hunter goes for the guild, for the bounty hunting guild, because we see them at the start of episode 1. At least we see one of them anyway. But no, going back, I saw this before, but so I was reading something about this, and apparently, when they were filming, this is a tangent, but when they were filming Empire Strikes Back, a long time ago, because actually, hang on, in this episode we see Baby Yoda eat a frog. All right, he eats a little frog. So in Empire Strikes Back, there was a reference to stuff about how the people who were filming Empire Strikes Back, when they were on Dagobah with Luke and Yoda, they referred to Yoda as a swamp frog or some shit like that. So I think that, you know, him eating a frog is sort of just a reference to that. But the other really funny thing is, it was during Attack of the Clones, George Lucas said that Yoda was apparently, it was a joke, but yeah, was the illegitimate child of Kermit the Frog and Miss Piggy. Which I thought was pretty funny. But I was reading about that. But yeah, there's a little Easter eggs here and there with that, as I was saying before, when Baby Yoda eats the frog. But that's skipping ahead a little bit. But we see before that, he, as a Mandalorian's going back to his ship, he's like stopping off to like fix his armor or some shit like that. I think that's before him getting to a ship. And he's trying to fix his like armor because he's got like a cut in him or something, or a blaster hit. And then Baby Yoda like keeps coming out of his like little baby pod, and he keeps like bringing his like hands up to the like cut on the Mandalorian, and we're not too sure exactly what he's doing. He's just like, you know, coming up, trying to touch his shoulder, but then the Mandalorian picks him up. It's so funny when the Mandalorian just picks up this little tiny Baby Yoda and just puts him back in the cradle thing.
Yeah.
But he does it like twice or three times or whatever, and we're not too sure what exactly that means, and we actually do find out sort of what it actually does sort of mean in the, later down the episode. But after that, we obviously find out that apparently this planet has Jawas on it, as a sandcrawler is there, and Jawas are stripping his ship for parts, which I thought was fucking hilarious. These little fucking things, because it's so weird. It's just like, that just felt so out of the blue. I was like, what the fuck, I was not expecting this. And it just, then
I was really like glad. I was like, yes, Jawas.
Oh yeah, fine. And then we have this little cool, like, I think it's like it follows with the Western style thing, but it's like a train heist sort of thing, where the Mandalorian follows the sandcrawler as it's driving away, as he like hops onto it and tries to climb it, as the Jawas are like throwing junk onto him. And then obviously he gets to like the top of the sandwalk, and it turns out there's like 20 of them up there with like stun guns, and they shoot him and he falls off, and then he's pissed off, and then he brings the baby, finds out his ship's been completely stripped apart, and he goes back to the Pigman. He's like, Pigman, can you help me? And then we have this little sequence of them going to the Jawas after that, because that's during that moment is when the Baby Yoda eats a frog. But yeah, we have this sort of, you know, interesting, just little extra story that happens, which I think is, you know, it's cool. It's just, it's something that randomly happened, had no influence or whatsoever for the rest of the story. I actually thought at first those Jawas were actually like, not bounty hunters, but working for some bounty hunter who was like, stripped this guy's ship for parts or some shit like that. Because that would have been, you know, I think, you know, I thought like that sort of would have made sense if this was the case, because obviously everyone wants this bounty. And if everyone knows who the Mandalorian is, they're like, okay, let's make this guy so then he can't leave this place or whatever. I thought it was that at first, but I don't think it is. It may still be. We're not too sure, but that was sort of what I was thinking when I saw that moment. But then we also get a moment where they're like tracking through the planet with the Pigman, and they go to the Jawas, and then they talk to the Jawas as they have this little funny conversation. Which I thought was pretty funny, because then we also get more personality there, as he's like, obviously we see the frustration as he like brings out his flamethrower and he tries to speak Jawa. I thought that was fucking hilarious. He's saying like, one of the Jawas was saying he was like a Wookiee or some shit like that, and then he brings out, fuck you. That was great. And then we find out that the Mandalorian, in order to get his ship back, he needs to get something called the egg. And it's like, oh, well, this sounds cool. Now, this is a side story. This is, and we find out that he's like, okay, I'm gonna get this fucking egg to get my ship back, which is whatever. And then we find out that he goes and gets the egg, and it turns out there's the egg is from some giant, like, I don't know what they call. Oh, actually no, I think I know what they call. They called it in the third episode a mudhorn, which is essentially like a hairy rhinoceros, which is actually like an actual creature in the Ice Age or whatever it's called. But it's like this giant rhinoceros with this egg.
Yeah, it pretty much, to me, it looked like a rhinoceros mixed with like a woolly mammoth.
Yeah, and there's actually I don't know what it's called, but there's an Ice Age rhinoceros that looks exactly like that. I just can't remember what it's called.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's in the Ice Age movies, I think. That's what I get it from. But then we also
I actually know what you're talking about now. Yeah, I remember that.
think so this moment when we get the Mandalorian to fight, he fights this thing, the Mudhorn, and again we get that moment of this guy isn't actually a just a fucking one-man army. He's actually he actually isn't super badass. He can, he was actually pretty close to being killed, and we could see that. And the really good thing is, like, in terms of like watching it anyway, we could see him struggling and everything, which I thought was good. It's giving that moment of like he actually is struggling. It's not just like he's just fucking winning the fight. He's actually getting his ass whooped by this giant rhinoceros. And like obviously he gets kicked about in the mud, which I thought was cool, like with the mud and everything, and the sort of the way this little, like, it was like this little arena sort of thing. It was in this little, like,
he was pretty much getting like thrown around.
He's getting his ass whooped, and then I don't know what the fuck he was thinking at the end there. He's like, okay, I can't do anything. I'm gonna pull my knife out and stab it as it charges at him with the horn, which is probably the most powerful thing of it. But good job. But then, here it goes. Turns out Baby Yoda is Baby Yoda, but we don't actually know if he is actually Baby Yoda, as we see.
He's
force sensitive. Baby Yoda brings up this rhinoceros, lifts it off in the ground, lifts it up and is clearly struggling with it, and then drops it, and then Mandalorian just kills it as he stabs it multiple times in the head, in the brain, or whatever. And then obviously, now we know that. Turns out this Baby Yoda is force sensitive, so this obviously gives more evidence to why these Empire people want it, and we'll talk about that in a second. But it's an interesting thing to add, because it also thinks about, like, if this is like another one of Yoda's race, does it mean that all of them are force sensitive? Because so far they all have been, because there's 3. There's Yaddle, I think her name is, which is the other Yoda creature in Phantom Menace on the council. There's Yoda, and then there's Baby Yoda. But we have that, an interesting development. But the one thing I thought was just a bit strange was that, I'm probably mistaken in thinking about this, but I thought, like, when it came to using the Force, it was like, I know there's like the raw power behind it and all, but lifting up a fucking giant rhinoceros like that, like, I understand the baby was struggling, but he just like did it first time. I thought, like, holy shit, that's a tough baby there. Only 50 years old.
But again, it is 50 years old, so it might have been
I don't know, but come on.
Because like when...
baby.
Well, yeah.
But,
like, but again, we don't really know like how intelligent this thing is. Obviously, it can't speak.
Yeah.
But, mentally, it might be thinking.
Yeah. But yeah, like...
But again, like, at the same time, I think it definitely has that playful nature, like, especially in Zone 3.
yeah, definitely, yeah.
I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think either the two, like, the theory of either it being Yoda's offspring or being a clone, I think either of those two are like so highly possible.
I think that's true, definitely.
Because it time-wise it works, and in circumstances both work.
Yeah.
Because Yoda lived to like 900 years old.
Yeah, some shit like that. Ancient frog boy.
Since the baby's like 50 years old, that would have made him been born before
But
the original.
but the really interesting part about that is that means that Yoda broke the like Jedi code as well, which then adds so much more to Anakin, right? Because Yoda was like the one who's like, yeah, fuck, you can't like, you know, be with somebody else. Turns out fucking Yoda over here, man, he's been hitting it, you know. However, we don't know that, but it's really interesting to think about that, because if that's the case, that literally changes the entire prequel meaning in terms of how Yoda was portrayed. Because it also shows it also shows that Yoda was actually basically probably a completely different person underneath every time we saw him, because obviously we saw him as this wise man. Maybe it turns out he was sort of just like Anakin. However, he was just a bit more wiser. Because Anakin, obviously, you know, he obviously broke the code and everything, became fucking Darth Vader and everything. But it's really interesting if that's to be honest, if that is the case, I actually fucking would love that, because then that adds so much more to the whole story. Because then it just adds a lot more. It's different to everything that I've seen. I think if that becomes true, or even if it's an Offspring, I think I love that. Even if it's the other one, a clone, that'd be great as well. But I think the Offspring one is actually really cool, because it has a massive like ripple effect on the rest of the Star Wars thing. It basically changes everything really, because it just means that essentially the wisest and, you know, the Jedi who's been known to be like the one who's always kept the Jedi code and everything, turns out he's broken it. But obviously we're not too sure. But obviously that's that episode, and again I agree with you, is that this episode should have been within the past one. But I guess the reason why they wanted it a separate one, because they wanted to have this Jedi moment and this sort of little side story, I guess, of giving us a bit more about him. I think that was the reason why. So then it didn't end up on like a cliffhanger, really. Or not a cliffhanger, but it didn't have like two massive things in the episode. But again, I guess the other thing is that really both these episodes only came out within like 2 days of each other, because one came out on like Tuesday or Wednesday and the other one came out on Friday.
Yeah, I haven't really been keeping track of like when they
so they come out every Friday, and then the first one came out the first Tuesday, so 2 came out in the first week.
Right, okay. Yeah. I'm just like a bit confused about the whole, because like, you know, on Disney Plus it hasn't really said, like, because you know on Netflix, right? On Netflix it's like, you know, for this show it comes out, you know, it has a specific date and how many episodes there's going to be. But obviously with I think all the shows on Disney Plus, there's no specific date. It's very mysterious, because I mean obviously they're still working out the probably all the kinks in that, but you know.
No, I definitely understand what you're saying.
Which I mean is fine, but I think obviously there's some people out there probably really just annoyed.
No, that's true. But the other thing I guess I did sort of miss out was we'll see this in the other episode, but like how Baby Yoda is portrayed, and I don't know, is he CGI? He looks CGI to me more so than a puppet.
I think in some scenes it changes. I'm not too sure.
A puppet, and I think he's a puppet, but he's got CGI elements. I think that what might be, because he's got,
like, I think definitely in the eyes, you know, it's got that very almost dreamscape sort of look.
Yeah.
In him.
Because the other thing is also, I think because I don't know, it just looks a bit weird every time he picks up the baby as well. I think that might be like the puppet and everything, but no, I think it's CGI and a mix of practical effects. But I thought, like, obviously I think it was really cool, because obviously the baby doesn't speak. Instead, we pick up expressions and personality from the ears, which I thought was just fucking cool as hell. Because we see him every time we see like the Mandalorian get hurt, his ears like go down, but then when he sees like the Mandalorian's like fine and everything, his ears go up. And it's basically it's just like, I think that's really cool. A really creative use of just character anyway, you know, instead of just using a voice, which this baby doesn't have, is using the ears, which I thought was just a nice addition to it. And it changes, you know, things. That was a nice thing I picked up. But that's episode 2, and I think we'll just move over to episode 3, unless you want to say anything else for episode 2.
Yeah, just like a quick note. I told you this in person a couple days ago.
Yeah.
But say it here. I realized, like, so in episode 1, I was like, okay, Mandalorian. I'm kind of recognizing this voice, and I didn't really look at the credits
Okay,
in the
yeah,
episode.
okay, yeah. I thought,
And then when I
didn't
was
know you didn't know
watching, I was
this.
watching episode. Yeah, I know, right? Like you would have thought
Yeah.
me, a big Game of Thrones fan, right, would have realized it. But then when I was watching episode 2, I was like, oh wait, I know him. And
Yeah.
it was Pedro Pascal. I was like,
Yeah.
oh my god.
No,
So
yeah, I thought
I
you
was
knew
like,
that.
that
I just
is
fucking
like,
thought you knew
yeah,
that.
I know. I was just like, I was very surprised, but I was like, yeah, this is so cool. Like, watching the Viper become a Mandalorian, that's sick.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Hopefully it just doesn't get crushed by a guy who's similar to the Mountain.
oh god, yeah, no, he learned his lesson.
Yeah, he learned his lesson. He's like,
he didn't wear a helmet in the fight, but
stop
now he never
taunting.
keeps his helmet off.
Oh yeah. That's why. Yeah, he's decided. Okay, using
Yeah,
helmet.
he's never taking that helmet off again.
But yeah, like from Game of Thrones. Anyway, I think his character anyway. The Viper. What's his name? Prince. Oberyn. Yeah, Oberyn. I thought he was fucking. I loved his character. I really liked. I don't know. I don't think his character will be like that in this, just because of the way he's been portrayed so far. But like even like that,
completely different.
Like something like that, I thought would have been really cool. Maybe he might turn into that. That'd be cool. Because I don't know. There's like that energy behind him when you watch Prince Oberyn. There's just that sort of style from it, which I really liked. But no, yeah, definitely. I just didn't know. I can't believe you didn't know that. The other thing is, I may as well say it now, that so this sort of leads into the second and third episode anyway. So from my knowledge, I'm not too versed in all Star Wars knowledge, and actually less so in canon anyway. I haven't really read anything besides the books and watched some of the TV shows, watched the films and stuff. But so from my knowledge is that a very long time ago in the Star Wars galaxy, there was
a long time
ago. There basically Mandalorians were like this massive threat. They were basically crusading against the entire galaxy, and they were doing really well. However, then the Jedi intervened, and they had this massive Jedi like Sith war or whatever, or Sith or Mandalorian war, whatever it was called. And they had this massive war, which ended up in the Mandalorians, I think their homeworld being basically destroyed almost. But it basically left the Mandalorians sort of with little left with them, as they lost basically their whole, their world and everything, and the Jedi won that. And obviously that was hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years ago. But I thought it was really interesting to think that this is the thing I'm not too sure, is that if this main character is technically a proper Mandalorian, if he saw that Baby Yoda was a Jedi, because as we said before, the Mandalorian in his flashbacks comes from the Clone Wars era, which was when the Separatists were and stuff like that, and the Jedi were around back then. Even though he may have been on the Outer Realm, I believe he at least should have heard rumors of the Jedi. Is that I think he should have. I don't know if he recognized that the Baby Yoda was a Jedi, or not Jedi, but like a Force sensitive, or had the potential of becoming something like that. I thought it's interesting to think that wouldn't the Mandalorian just hate the living shit out of this guy because of this baby? Because essentially, like the Jedi, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, basically killed all the Mandalorians. So I thought that's an interesting thing, that either this Mandalorian, the main character, doesn't know about the massive war that happened hundreds of years ago, or he's just sort of, pushing past that or whatever. Obviously, Baby Yoda is not a Jedi, but he's still Force sensitive, and, well, come on, I think everyone knows in the galaxy that, looking at this guy, I don't think he's a Sith. If anything, Baby Yoda, I think he's more of a Jedi than a Sith, if anything. But I thought that was interesting because, that adds a bit more to it. And going into the next episode, which I'll come back to that at the end, but he continues to show that it seems more or less that this main character actually doesn't know anything about Force sensitivity, or at least knows too much about it, and also doesn't really know anything about Jedi and Sith, because otherwise he probably should have recognized what was going on here. But okay, episode 3. I think episode 3 so far is my favorite episode. Out of all of them so far, because it basically just had everything. It had the whole package, essentially. It had everything from character development to a fucking epic shootout, which was like one of the best ones I've seen for a very long time. However, there were some things a bit strange with it. So we get to see that the Mandalorian brings the baby back to this flaming volcanic planet, whatever it is. He brings the baby through, and we get to see that the baby. It seems like the baby was, like not blown away, but like there was not confusion, but I guess like the baby Yoda's never seen this many people around, because just the way that like the eyes and the ears were, like it just seemed like baby Yoda wasn't used to this. So maybe this is like the first time baby Yoda's ever seen so many people before. So it also goes to the idea that, so it means that this baby Yoda has been isolated for a very long time, and that could possibly lend to the idea of the offspring idea, because if it was Yoda, he would want to keep it safe and hidden, but still we are not too sure. But then we find out that the Mandalorian, he's like, whatever, I'm doing this for the money or whatever. He hands over baby Yoda, and he takes the Beskar steel, which is a lot of money, and he does. We also see more character development here, because he questions the Empire guy, the governor or whatever his name, I don't know who he is. He questions him about what are you doing with the kid, and the guy's basically like, you're going against your code. Mandalorian's like, yeah, but there's obviously that point of confliction in it, which is perfect. That's what we want. We want somebody who actually thinks for themselves and isn't just driven by, I'm just doing it for the money, which is great.
I mean, which also stems from your idea that he might not be a Mandalorian.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing as well, because actually, to be honest, if that was a different Mandalorian, I bet you the other Mandalorian would be like, yeah, fuck it, take the baby, I want the money, I don't care about what you're doing to this. But I think, actually that also lends the idea that he maybe actually not be a Mandalorian. That's why he's not as, just doesn't have those same influences that he's had like all the other Mandalorians. But then we get to the point of we see the confliction in him as he goes down. He goes and gets his Beskar steel made into new armor. But while we're down there, we get to see some of the other Mandalorians, which I said before are just absolutely fucking badass. They look so cool. The main guy, which we see later with the spoiler in the future, is the guy with the Gatling gun, is fucking badass.
That was so awesome.
That guy,
and they all have jetpacks,
but
all that stuff.
We see him, and we have that little moment inside the Mandalorian underground thing, is they have a little standoff. But then this armor is stop doing that. And then there's another quote now. It's the way, is it, or whatever it is, the way it is, or the way.
This is the way.
This is the way. That's right. This is the way, and stuff like that. Which I'm sorry, but I don't know. I just felt a bit ugh. But okay. But it's that warrior culture.
I think that's pretty cool.
I think it's cool, but I don't know.
It's that tribe sort of.
No, yeah, I liked it. I don't know. I just felt, I don't know. It just didn't really ring with me. But nevertheless, I understand the ideal behind it and everything, so I agree with it and everything. But then we get to the point of when, when he gets his armor made, and as he's talking to this armorer, the armorer's asking, you've earned your signet, which is the Mudhorn, for killing the Mudhorn. But he says that he didn't kill the Mudhorn, and he instead, his quote was my enemy helped me defeat it. And it's my enemy didn't know he was my enemy, which was, obviously he's talking about Baby Yoda. And it turns out he then gets a nickname, which is, I don't know where the hell it came from, called Whistling Birds. That's his signet now, but he gets the, these little rocket things on his arm, which are fucking cool, and we get to see them in use later. But actually, going back a little bit, I thought when they were having that little fight scene between that Mandalorian and the big guy with the Gatling gun, they had vibro knives out. You could see the knives, which are I'm assuming that's why they're called vibro swords, is because they vibrate. Because if you watch the episode and watch them fight, if you watch the daggers or the swords in when the two guys are fighting, they're vibrating. You can see the swords are vibrating. I think they're vibro swords. And vibro swords are essentially the top tier weapons, and not like as good as like lightsabers, but I think they can hold up against a lightsaber. But I thought that was a nice little interesting nod.
Vibrating at like that certain like speed, like it definitely goes through stuff a lot easier. Like I meant like when he actually saves Baby Yoda from the the empire, the fallen empire people. Yeah, he instantly those knives go through that armor like so easily, like instant, like you know.
Because yeah, like, but in terms of that, yeah, that I thought that was a little interesting, a nod to sort of stuff like that. But then we go ahead and we get to see him, the Mandalorian again, the continuing confliction as he goes and gets the next bounty. And then he's like, get me as far away as possible. But then he's like, he's questioning everything. He's like, hang on, what are they going to do with the kid? And obviously he doesn't get any information from that. Then he goes back, or he grabs this new bounty, goes to a ship, and he gets in the ship, and there's that slow, as he's turning the ship on. And actually, I forgot to say this before, but when Baby Yoda's from the ship, he took off like a little knob from like I don't know what control it is, but one of the knob sort of ball things took that off. And then we get that moment inside the cockpit when he turns around, he looks at the knob, and there's clearly it's been taken off, and it's obviously referencing Baby Yoda. And it's like, I was like, at that moment, it's like, yeah, fuck yeah, he's going back. He's gonna fucking, I want him to go back and kick these fucking Empire asses.
Yes.
Stuff like that. But actually, I keep forgetting about this. Everything. But the other thing is that there's also a nod to the New Republic, which is, I thought actually wasn't in power actually in this era, but turns out they were. But they talked about how even the New Republic aren't as good because, well, the whole idea is because how they're on the Outer Rim, no one cares about them, and they're sort of thinking, and they're because when the Mandalorian's talking to the bounty hunter guy, trying to get the new bounty, he talks about the Empire, and he says, why not go tell the New Republic about the Empire? And obviously it's a joke because, one, he's a Mandalorian who's a bounty hunter, and the other thing is, who gives a shit about them out on the Outer Rim. I thought that was a little interesting thing as well, but then we obviously see the Mandalorian is like, screw it, I'm gonna go save this child. And there's this cue the epic, badass scene where he goes and infiltrates this little compound, and as I thought, so far has been one of the best fight scenes, actually one of the best fight scenes besides the last one, as he like goes through, sort of sneaks in, sort of like Solid Snake from fucking Metal Gear Solid, as he just fucking makes his way in there. He uses always like, I thought the really cool thing about this, there was like so many creative ways that he killed people. He used this grappling hook, he used this flamethrower, he used like light on his side or darkness and stuff like that, because obviously I'll talk about this in a second, but all the stormtroopers had all their lights on as they'd gone through, and apparently they couldn't see him, and he was obviously using that against them. He used the knife as well. He used his gun, his large like long rifle thing, which had like a taser at the end of it. He also got to use, towards the end, the whistling bird's weapon, which is those rocket things. And obviously during that, or before that, we see him pick up Baby Yoda, and it turns out I'm not 200% sure with this that Dr. Pershing is actually still like a good person. He does say that he's been, making sure that the baby wasn't killed.
He said like if it wasn't for him, it'd already be dead.
But I don't know if like he still like doesn't mind it getting killed or whatever. But who knows? Maybe in the future he might come back and become a good guy, which be pretty interesting.
Did you also notice when he saw Baby Yoda in that room that the robot was an extractor robot?
Yeah, the investigating thing, which was
the same from the original series.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it like zoomed in, didn't it?
Yeah.
But I thought what was more interesting was, why would they be interrogating a baby who can't talk or whatever? I don't know what it was for.
There's still that mystery of like if it was because they were when the Mando was like listening into that conversation with the doctor and the well, I don't know, I think it's a lieutenant, but
I think it's an name, but I can't remember what his name is.
Yeah. Like he was saying, like, do whatever you have to as long as you extract what we need.
Which we're assuming is like DNA or something.
Yeah, it's either his DNA or like, I don't know, something. But like the question is, did they actually succeed in
in doing that.
extracting it, or did Mando actually retrieve him before they could do that?
Yeah,
You know?
that's a good thing. Who knows? Yeah, I've got a feeling they did, but who knows? Maybe not. But definitely, it's an interesting thing to see there, because then that sort of more lends to the fact: is he a clone then, or is he actually just an offspring who is going to be cloned, or is he literally just another child, another like one of Yoda's race who they just found? Too many mysteries.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we'll find it out in the future, but. I'm intrigued and very curious to what this is, because it's a very interesting thing, because obviously it's so mysterious, the race, just seeing another one pop up is just so strange, and why would the Empire want them? And to be honest, I don't know how even the Empire, actually, that's another question, is how did the Empire even know about, like, this creature? Because really, from my knowledge, is that, like, Emperor Palpatine made sure that no one really knew too much about, like, all the rest of the Jedi. And I don't think many Empire people would even know about, even people from the Jedi Order that were killed, and let alone Yoda, because if anything, they would want to get Yoda's, like, his name out of there. So it's interesting to think, like, who would be the one who would actually, because I'm assuming these people are just henchmen for some bigger guy. And, like, who knows, this might be, like, leading to Emperor Palpatine or something, or, like, some of his own, like, personal guards or something, or personal assistants or personal, like, secret officers or some shit like that, who know about Yoda or knows about the race and knows how powerful these Force-sensitive creatures are. Because that's another interesting point that sort of I just thought about just then, is that, yeah, how would they actually know about this creature? How do they know how powerful it is? Because I don't think many people would really know about that. Even Empire people, let alone that, really. So there's obviously someone higher up in the Imperial or the Remnant who knows a lot, and I've got a good feeling that it has some tie to Emperor Palpatine in some way, because only Emperor Palpatine would know how powerful Yoda was, because obviously in Revenge of the Sith he fought him.
Yeah, which also, like, ties in with how he's being returned into
In
Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, maybe, because I was saying this before, but I don't think we're going to find out about this really anytime soon, but one of the episodes, usually they're all coming out Fridays, one of them is coming out on a Wednesday. That the reason is because Star Wars is coming out on the Thursday, I think, or the Friday, whatever. So my, like, thinking there is there some link between the episode and that in the movie? Which I think, I think that would be good. Be pretty cool.
I think that would be so awesome.
However,
right? Because either way,
yeah,
if this Baby Yoda survives the entire Mandalorian series, there is the potential of us seeing him because
that'd be so cool.
of the age, right?
Yeah.
Like, I would love that so much.
However, I think it actually may be more or less that they don't want to have two Star Wars things on the same day, but I'm not too sure. But I really hope it is, like, there's some correlation between the two. I really think there will be, because why not?
Because also, if he is a clone, then there's that also tie-in with potentially Rey being a clone as well. Because with that dream sequence of her seeing herself so many times.
What if she has the DNA of this Baby Yoda?
Really? Ooh, heck.
Because that would make sense, because she's so powerful, right? Oh, shit. I feel like that, there may be something there, because that would make sense, because if they're using Baby Yoda as a clone, they're using the DNA, and if the rumors are true and everything that Rey is a clone, they would want to give her the strongest, like, DNA there is, which would be from Baby Yoda. Man, if this is fucking it, I'm baggers in that as my thought. Yeah, I haven't seen that anyone else.
Because, like, obviously in the prequel trilogy, right? There's that whole thing about the midichlorians, right? Which isn't really the greatest plot, like, assets to the Star Wars universe, right?
No, it's not great.
But like, in a sense, right?
Yeah.
Like, what if the directors decided to make it in a way of, like, they found a way to extract midichlorians.
Yeah, and then that's the thing. Like, how does that work? Because I don't know. Because isn't it like everyone has midichlorians or some shit, but, like, only there's some who can manipulate it? How does that work? Unless there's, like, maybe, I don't know, there's, like, a gene that allows you to do it. The fuck knows.
Yeah.
But man,
It's
if that's
confusing.
if that's it, I think I actually like that because that makes the Mandalorian series a lot more important to the overall thing, and then if that imagine and then what if Baby Yoda's also the offspring of Yoda? That means he can raise like not a descendant, but just like linked to Yoda.
Yeah, that would be
That would
awesome.
be pretty cool.
And imagine like seeing like his, because we see his Force ghost in the latest movie,
Yeah. Oh man, if that becomes it, shit. But yeah, moving on ahead. We obviously have that definitely cool ass fight scene inside, and I love that. The one problem I think I have with it is that, as I was saying before, I thought the stormtroopers were like cool and everything, and they're still the same. They're still so shit. They were basically.
I don't know. Like
I think
the
they're gonna
very
whooped.
first shot that a stormtrooper takes does actually shoot him.
It shoots him, but
Would
it shoots him on his best armor piece, which is like like not great. The reason why I thought it was dumb was there was one moment when he was carrying Baby Yoda and he was in this little like cargo space, and as he was in this cargo space, he like made a bit of noise and then he hid, and there was obviously the lights out, and I swear, like, I don't know how the fuck the stormtroopers didn't see him without the light, because even we saw him without the light, but I guess that's because it's the film and stuff. But they split up. We'll split them up and flush them out. Good idea. And then they're like turning the lights on and looking around. I just felt like, and they're like, I don't know how they didn't hear or see anything. I felt it was a little bit weird.
It's the helmet. No.
Well, I think it fucking is the helmet. There's always that thing. It's like the helmet's like this tiny visor on the top of like you see like nothing. It could possibly be that, but I don't know. I sort of hoped a little bit more from them, but they did get like one decent shot off. But that's really it. So that stormtroopers still the same, even though they look really worn and stuff like that. They are still the worst shooters in the galaxy. I don't know how on earth, even though they're meant to be like trained, like disciplined and everything, but whatever. Moving on ahead, we obviously then get the moment of Mandalorian's leaving. Turns out everyone who's a bounty hunter at this place, all their beacons go off. They're like, oh shit, it's
basically
back on.
the whole town.
And then they all track him down as he's just about to get into his ship. And we have absolute badass shootout as another fucking super cool moment where the like creative use of terrain and creative use of environment when Guildmaster bounty hunter guy's like, put the baby in the land speeder and you can go. And he's like, what if I get in the land speeder? And then he fucking gets in the land speeder. At this moment, even though he's like struggling, he's still fucking kicking ass. And I still think like he's still getting his ass whooped here and there. He's still getting shot and everything, but he's still pretty good. Either that or every other bounty hunter is just literal trash, and just missing everything. They could possibly be the other thing. And then we also have stuff like that when like the super cool fights. And then as all hope is almost lost, I thought, to be honest, when I thought like the Mandalorian was about to get shot or whatever, I thought that what was actually going to happen was Baby Yoda was going to like use the Force or something to like, I don't know, create like a shield or some shit. I don't fucking know. They might do something else. It might like push everyone away. But it turns out the gang arrive, getting these badass Mandalorians, come in with their jetpacks, then just start fucking shooting the shit out of everyone, which was fucking so good. Oh my god, I love that. Mandalorians come in, the guy with the fucking Gatling gun.
Yes.
Everyone has a jetpack as they're flying around. I don't know, I will say, I just felt the jetpacks looked a bit weird. I just don't know, they looked a little bit strange.
When they came out in that scene, like I think that's where a bit of the CGI
it didn't
kind of
really
lent in.
Yeah.
Like I did notice that a bit, but obviously when they were on the ground, it definitely looked a lot better.
I thought that's so. I like. But the really cool thing is, like, all these other bounty hunters had no idea these Mandalorians were there, I don't think they actually knew they were there. Because they all had this look, obviously they had this look of surprise, but I just remember that the bounty hunter Guildmaster guy, he was talking about how, like, there's not very many Mandalorians left, and he's like, he's surprised to see one of these Mandalorians. So I'm not too sure, like, they're seeing all these Mandalorians, like, holy shit, I would get the fuck out of there if I saw these guys. These guys in, like, the best armor, the best weapons, in jetpacks, just come out and kick their asses. I thought it was great. I fucking love that scene. And it's also weird interesting because I don't think they knew that they had Mandalorian obviously had Baby Yoda, but it goes to show that the warrior culture of them is how I was reading up on this, that the Mandalorians, their code of honor between each other is stronger than like any other law. So if one of their own like breaks a law or some shit like that or goes over it, they'll help him no matter what, which I think is so cool. And that's why I guess they came to like save him. And then obviously it's like, now you have to leave. It's like, this is the way or whatever. And then obviously we have a cool moment where Mando's about to leave, but then this guildmaster comes out and he's like, stop, I don't want to do this. But then another creative use is the Mandalorian hits the the carbonite sort of button or whatever, creates a smoke screen, then shoots the guildmaster. Then it looks like the guildmaster's dead, and then the Mandalorian gets in the ship and fucking gets the shit out of it, gets out of there as quick as possible. Turns out the guildmaster wasn't killed, as it turns out, as any classic sort of thing. It shot the Beskar steel instead of him. It shot the armor piece.
Which is also literally stems from Western reference.
Like a Bible or some shit. Or gold or whatever.
But I think, like, the question is, though, did the Mandalorian accidentally shoot the Beskar or on purpose?
That's what I'm thinking. I think he actually shot it. I think he purposely shot it. Because he knew it was there.
Because remember, he did show.
He did show, yeah. He knew it was there.
Mando that, he was, quote unquote, rich.
Yeah. From
those two pieces, and then he put him back in his pocket, and that's exactly where he shot.
Maybe he could have just shot him because he didn't. But why wouldn't? Guess he's not a bad guy. Well, actually, he is a bad guy. But he hasn't really done anything bad to the Mandalorian. He's actually helped them a lot. That's why he didn't want to kill him. But I don't know. Maybe
I would consider him anti-hero. Sort of I would say he's very Han Solo sort of.
Yeah, alignment, definitely. Yeah.
But that's probably not as charismatic.
No, not as charismatic. Well, not yet, anyway. Until it turns out Prince Oberyn comes out of nowhere.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, then we end up with the Mandalorian leaving as he's flying away, and then the Mandalorians, the ones with the jetpacks, fly away. And then the man remarks, he's like, I gotta get one of those. Hopefully he gets one of those, because fuck yeah, who doesn't want to see a jetpack?
When that guy was flying by while he was in the ship, I don't know why, but I just felt like I was seeing Iron Man.
Yeah, actually, I see that. Yeah, shit.
Yeah.
Well,
classic Disney.
But yeah, then it ends up with that, as it ends with the, he's leaving. I'm assuming he's actually going back. I'm gonna say he probably goes back to that planet. And he goes meet with that with the pig man. I gotta find out what his name is.
Yeah.
I feel like he is. I feel like, come on, that guy has to come back. He's fucking great. He's great, and he's like a mechanic
I
and everything.
I definitely feel like we're going to see him again.
Yeah.
But I'm not really too sure that's where he's heading.
Where else would he go there? Because I feel like that's the only place he knows, and that's the only place we know of anyway. But I don't know. Who knows? May not be. Maybe. We'll find out. But that's basically all the episodes.
I'm really hoping just for this is just me, but I really hope in future episodes, I would really be keen for some sort of cameo from somewhere.
Yeah.
But if not, I'm that's cool. I think it would be a bonus to have some sort. I'm not too sure from who though. Not too sure who would be alive right now. But
well, I thought that I don't think I'm right in saying this, but there was a moment when the Mandalorian was getting his bounty from the Guildmaster, the one when he was talking about the baby. The bounty that he was going for, I don't think it is, but who knows? It could have been Admiral Akbar's son, who we know is in The Last Jedi. I think he's in The Last Jedi. We know Admiral Akbar's in it. Rest in peace.
Hopefully that new job isn't a trap,
Yeah, shit. But yeah, I didn't know, that might be him or may not be his son or some shit like that. But we also know actually during that time Admiral Akbar is alive. So it could be, but it also could not be.
But yeah. So is Luke, Leia.
So Luke, everyone. Well, the Jedi Order was coming up as well. They were building the Jedi Order.
I mean, there's a lot of people that still have.
Because it's only like a couple of years after the Battle of Yavin. I think it was Battle of Yavin or Battle of Thingo.
I reckon in the sense of like, I bet they probably won't, because I think they don't want to have that, because they want the Mandalorian different, and that's how it, like, that's how, you know, like you were saying before, it's Outer Rim, it's from a different perspective.
Yep. I think that's what really does well. I think that's sort of one of the good drawing factors from it, is because it's different to everything else really we've seen in terms of canon movies and sort of the general like film culture of it all, is that all of that we really see from it is the good versus bad guys, Jedi versus Sith. In this, it's, well, so I don't know, it could possibly turning into Jedi versus Sith. I don't think it will, but you know, we're seeing it from a different place and everything on the Outer Rim, which I think is good, and it has that Star Wars aesthetic, which adds more to that. It makes it that much better. But yeah, is there anything else you want to add to episode 3?
Off the top of my head, I think that's pretty much it.
Alright, well, I believe, that's basically it. We went through it all. Theories-wise, probably didn't talk about everything, but this went pretty long. It went for like an hour and a half, so it's probably 30 minutes each thing. But it's just, we rant. Because there's a lot of things to talk about, and that's the thing. I like that. I like doing these because we get to talk about all these cool things, and even if they don't come to pass, I just like fucking talking about how cool these things are, and learning more about all these things. It's definitely a really cool thing, and I thank you for joining us, Christian, for this, and hopefully to see you in the next episode, and hopefully we should be able to get another person in.
You're very welcome.
We're not too sure if we will. Hopefully we will, though. It'd be good to have another person in this. But to tie everything up, so this is the first 3 episodes. There should be the next Hive chat coming out soon as well, and then the next podcast for this, and then later down the track there should be maybe a podcast for the Witcher series. But I believe that is mostly it, or I think that is it. There's nothing else you want to add, Christian, quickly, or you all good?
Well, again, I think like final notes is like, you know, the show overall, definitely, I'd probably give it an 8.5 out of 10.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Just for the fact of it being,
give it a rating.
You know, like of that bit of conflict there with the whole, you know, not sure about some of the influences in the show, but at the same time, I think the overall matter is like, it's Star Wars aesthetic. It's the story to start off with was a bit confusing, but now has led into this like more, you know, a bit more complicated, you know, story arc wise, character development is great now. The dialogue has gotten better.
That's definitely. That's true.
And I think I'm actually really keen for episode 4.
Yeah, definitely, and I
especially after this last episode.
100%, yeah, definitely, and like for a rating, I guess I'd say 8 out of 10. I'd sort of follow the same thing with you. It's just overall, like the overall quality of it all was like definitely the biggest part of it I really like. The story is definitely getting so much better, and the characters actually getting much better. However, I still think there's still some flaws with character wise, and just I guess the influences wise, and I guess the stereotypical way it's all been used is sort of just a bit, you know, it's been used a bit too much. Even though it's in a completely different setting, it still has that underlying, I've seen this before. It's not a bad thing in any sense. It's just, you know, it could have been done differently. However, you know, everyone else could love this. It's just, I guess, there's just certain aspects that aren't. That I just feel like definitely was seen just too many times. But I think that's it. There's nothing else to say. And I believe, that's all it. I'll see you, I guess, everybody, if anyone's still here. See you next podcast episode. Either in this one for episode 4 or 5, or in the next Hive chat. But either way, I have spoken.
Yes, we have spoken.
We have spoken.